So if you're a golfer that's really passionate about equipment, you love seeing a good what's in the bag, whether it's your favorite pro golfer or someone you're watching on YouTube or follow online. People love to know what other golfers are playing. I've been a bit cynical about them, to be honest, because whatever club someone else is playing shouldn't dictate the decisions you make in your golf bag, especially if they're a pro golfer. They can do things with the club and they have access to fitting that no one else has, and you shouldn't buy a set of irons just because your favorite golfer plays them. So I've been asked to do a what's in the bag over the years, and usually I respond, who cares what I play? Again, I've been a bit cynical about it. But in this video, what I'm gonna try and do is go through my bag and teach you about club fitting in the process. Like every other golfer, I have a certain DNA of my golf swing, how I deliver the club. It's not always perfect. I need a lot of help, and that's what getting the right equipment can do for you. In case you don't know me, my name is Jon Sherman. I'm the author of the best-selling book, The 4 Foundations of Golf, and I'm a golfer just like you. I've played equipment off the rack over the years, I've been custom fit, and I've learned a ton about club fitting from my friend Woody Lashin at Pete's Golf and some other experts in the industry. My YouTube channel is still new. It's only been a few months since I've been doing this, but I did notice my most popular video so far was about golf equipment, where I went through club fitting and kind of taught people some of the basics and what they should look for, and I'll link to that in the description in case you want to see that. So I'm going to go through my golf bag and explain all of the reasons why I have each club. I don't change for the sake of changing. As you'll see, I had irons for almost 8 years. My putter I've had for years. I don't have the newest driver. I'm only going to make a change if I see a tangible benefit in the launch monitor or stuff I'm seeing on the golf course that helps me solve the impact interval questions more effectively. And for me, a lot of that has to do with launching the ball higher with more spin, because I need as much of that as I can get because of my golf swing. So with that, let's get into my golf bag. So I'm going to start in my bag with what I think is the most interesting club I have, is my Seymour putter. I've been using this putter for about 6 or 7 seasons now, and I can legitimately tell you that it has saved me strokes. I've become way better with their system. Not that you have to go out there and buy this immediately, but I just want to explain how I think about putting and how this putter is perfectly matched for that. So with putting, I'm essentially looking to remove variables on the green. I don't want to be thinking about my stroke, my alignment, my posture. I want to remove all of that and simply focus on depth perception and speed control. So the combination of this putter, which I'll explain how it works, in addition to a green reading system that I use called Aim Point, which I'm sure you've heard of, it's removed all those variables. And as I said, it's really changed my game significantly. So I know that lab putters are the ones getting all the attention these days, and they're making fantastic putters. To my knowledge, Seymour is the only company that is kind of a game improvement system. So Payne Stewart was the first pro golfer to win with their putter back in the late 90s at the US Open. I think Zach Johnson has won a couple majors with it, but they're not really a flashy marketing company. They quietly have a set of fitters throughout the country. They don't spend big dollars to get their name everywhere or tour validation. But what's unique about the Seymour is the bullseye design. What they believe about putting is that they kind of want everything to be neutral, and as I said, remove variables. They want you to set up to the ball exactly the same every time, with the same shaft lean, with the same ball position. What this does is that essentially you want this shaft to make this little red bullseye disappear, and then you know you're aligned properly. So what does this do? It first allows you to have the same ball position every time, so it's slightly up in my stance a bit. A lot of golfers, when they set up to putts, sometimes they lean the shaft a couple of degrees, sometimes it's 4 degrees, sometimes it's 2 degrees, sometimes it's backwards. But again, when this bullseye disappearing as you're looking down towards the putter, you know that you're set up with totally neutral shaft lean. That's how they've designed this putter. So what it does on the greens is that I know that every time I step up to the ball, I have pretty much the same posture, ball position, and no shaft lean. And that's huge in putting. I don't want to be doing something different every time. It's designed to have a gentle arc in the putting stroke. All golfers have an arc in their putting stroke. Some are more pronounced, some are less. The straight back, straight through thing is kind of a myth. You really don't want to do that. But again, if you're looking down at this putter during your putting stroke while you're practicing, you want to make this bullseye disappear. And if you do that, it's just making this very gentle arcing stroke. So I got fit by them about 6 or 7 years ago for this and kind of never looked back. I know there's a ton of people out there who use their putters who swear by them. It's kind of like a cult classic of the golf industry. But again, the reason I love it so much is because it removes all the variables and extraneous thoughts on the putting green, knowing that I'm making a similar stroke, I'm set up the same, I have my green reading system, I know that I'm aligned to my target properly, and then I could just focus on speed control, and that's helped me make a lot more putts over the years. That's why I have this putter in my bag, and it's probably never going to leave my bag ever. It's one of those pry this out of my cold dead hand situations. All right, so now I'm gonna do my irons next. I'm gonna probably spend the most time here because for a few reasons. I think I'll talk about kind of the DNA of my golf swing and how my equipment, specifically my irons, are fit for that swing, how I've changed over the years, and what I'm looking to achieve. Historically, people have talked about wedges being your scoring clubs, but your irons are really your scoring clubs. We now know that hitting better iron shots, hitting more greens in regulation is how golfers separate from one another in scoring. So getting the right iron set makeup for your swing tendencies is incredibly important. As I said in the beginning of the video, I don't make changes lightly. I've been playing the same set of irons for almost 8 seasons, and I'm making a change this year to see how it goes because I saw tangible evidence in a fitting that I did with Woody Lashin. Let me talk about my golf swing and why my irons work for it. My swing generally is a very in to out swing path. It's a little less at this point. I de-loft the club, so I'm launching it lower with less spin, and in the past, I was delivering the club very upright, so the toe was up in the air. So when PXG first came out with their irons, I think it was 8 years ago, there was a lot of hoopla around it. I thought it was a lot of marketing fluff. Woody and I did the first, published review of those clubs. I absolutely loved them because at the time it gave me something that I didn't have. I was launching the ball higher with more distance. I was playing a blade style iron with more forgiveness because I don't strike the center of the face that often. So when I did the review, I liked them so much that I actually stuck with the irons for years. And we've tried many times to find better irons for me and we couldn't, but we finally did this year, and I'll talk about why I switched. But the way these clubs were designed for me was that it had to accommodate how I delivered the club. So if you have a toe up in the air for a right-handed golfer with lie angle, which is crucially important to get with your irons, it sends the ball more left, so I was getting a bigger hook. So these irons were actually designed flatter for me, so I could actually hit a straighter shot. So because I'm low launch and low spin, I hit my irons pretty far. I can hit a 7-iron 180 or 185. That's been good for me for years, but as I've gotten deeper and deeper into tournament play, because I can't launch the ball as high with as much spin, I have more difficulty on firmer greens. For years, we've been looking for irons that could launch higher with more spin so I could get more stopping power, and we never really could find the right combination. Over the years, my club head delivery has changed. I'm now probably 2, 3, 4 degrees into out with a 7-iron. I'm a bit steeper. I'm 3 or 4 degrees down. And more importantly, over the last year or two, I noticed that my typical draw was becoming a straight or even left to right shot with an in to out swing path. The only reason that was happening was because my lie angle had changed, which again is very important for club fitting. So when we checked out my PXGs recently, we noticed that my club had gone from very flat or a bit upright to very toe down. I was like 4 or 5 degrees toe down. And when the toe's striking the turf like that, it's going to send the ball more right. We went through a bunch of irons to see if we could find anything better than the PXG. Tried a couple of models, same launch and spin profile. We found one that actually spun more and launched higher in the 5,000s RPMs. My 7-iron only spins at about 4,500, which is incredibly low. On mishits, I was losing a ton of distance. So we finally settled on these Strixons. These are the ZX5s. And what we found was that I was launching the ball higher, about 2 degrees. I went from about 17-degree launch to 19, 20-degree launch. Went from about mid 4,000 spin to high 4,000s. So I was getting higher launch with more spin, so I would get that stopping power. More importantly, I was getting the same distance profile. These ZX5s actually have more aggressive lofts than the PXGs, but because the center of gravity is different, it was launching the ball higher. So don't fall for the myth that static loft is everything. It's really more about where the center of gravity is on the club, on how it's going to launch off the face and the spin profile. The higher shots with more spin was what I was looking for, so so I saw enough evidence to shift, and we adjusted the lie angle so I could get my draw back. Now, another thing to consider in iron fitting is obviously shafts. You want the right profile, weight, flex, all of that stuff. And I've been playing Modus shafts in my PXGs for years, but another thing we had to take into consideration, and this is what club fitting does, is a physical limitation. If you've been listening to my podcast the last couple of years, you know that I've been dealing with a fairly bad case of tennis elbow. I have tendinosis, which is kind of like advanced stage tendonitis. So I've been dealing with pain in my elbow. I've been rehabbing it, doing all the right things, taking supplements. It's finally starting to get better. But one thing Woody suggested when we were doing the fitting was, he asked me what I thought about a graphite shaft. And initially I was like, what are you talking about? That sounds crazy. Because typically graphite shafts are lighter. But in this case, Acra, which is a phenomenal Canadian company, you'll see their shafts are in all my other hybrids, fairway woods, and drivers. They actually made a shaft that was the same weight as my prior shafts, and weight is really important in club fitting. So we're starting to get more options with graphite shafts where you can put them into irons because they're able to make them heavier. And the main reason we did this was to reduce the vibration and the shock that my elbow was getting at impact. Not much change in terms of my ball flight or anything like that. We were just looking to maintain what I had with my shaft profile, but reduce vibration. And another thing that's really important in fitting is your grips. I always played Golf Pride, these style grips or these hybrid grips that I really liked, standard size. Again, to accommodate my elbow, we went with these Lampkin Sonar grips. These are designed to absorb more shock. I actually went with a mid-size grip that's a bit thicker, also to reduce the strain on my elbow. It's been interesting. It's a bit different for me, but I actually think it might help with face control. So yeah, that's why I made the change on these irons. It's a big change for me this year, but I'm willing to go with it to, again, alleviate the stress on my elbow and get higher shots with more stopping power, and I'll see how it works on the course. But the thing you have to understand with all the irons out there, and I've done this with so many tests, is that if you don't get the right center of gravity profile, if you don't get the right design in terms of its forgiveness and how it looks for you, lie angle is super important for directional control, getting distance gaps. These are all things you have to take into consideration when getting your iron set so that you can control your distance more and hit more greens. Like, that's the name of the game. If I find something I like, I'm gonna stick with it for a long time. So now let's move on to my 3 hybrid. So every golfer has a decision to make at the top of their bag when they're transitioning from their longest iron to likely a hybrid or fairway wood. As I said, I'm a low launch, low spin player. So really a 4 iron is the last club that I can get high enough in the air. It's a club that I can carry about 205, 210. But if I play a 3 iron, I probably can't hit it much farther because I start to get diminished returns in terms of the height and distance control. And that's the case for a lot of golfers, even at much slower swing speeds. When you start reducing lofts on the club, it's much harder to get the ball in the air with your irons. So for me, I always played a 4 hybrid. For years, I had an Adams hybrid, which was kind of a legendary club. I had it in my bag for 8 or 9 years, but eventually Woody and I found this Ping hybrid, which is a G425. And the reason I switched was it got me a higher launch and more spin with the same distance. So kind of a similar story to my irons. I'm looking for more height and stopping power on any club I can get because of my swing profile. So this was great for me. It spun in the mid 3000s and launched a bit higher than the Adams, and it finally dethroned that club. So this is kind of a useful club for me off the tee when I need to use it, on holes where I don't want to hit driver, and certainly on longer approach shots, some par 5s and some par 4s. One of my favorite clubs in the bag. And again, I have the Acra shafts on this. This is all matched to my swing profile, the weight, the flex. I need very stiff clubs not because I swing at prodigious speeds. I think I'm 108 with my driver. It's because I apply a lot of load to the shaft in transition. So yes, I do need stiffer shafts, a little bit heavier with the profile to match, and all the shafts I have are from Acra, which is a phenomenal company, and have that same mid-sized grip on this too. I never thought my Adams would get dethroned, but I've had this in my bag for a couple of years and it's been phenomenal for me. Now let's talk about fairway woods. This has always been a thorn in my side. If you watch my video on 3 woods are the devil, you'll understand my thoughts on fairway woods. But my problem with fairway woods is that I really can't play a 3 wood. I just can't get it high enough. I can't spin it enough. So for years, I actually didn't even have one in the bag. I was playing a 2 driver setup, which I'll explain when I get to my driver. A real challenge for Woody and I was to find a fairway wood, again, that could launch high enough with enough spin so I could stop it on the green. For a few years, I was playing a TaylorMade Sim 2 5 wood set to like a very high loft. So I would kind of launch it how a normal golfer might launch their 3 wood. So I need as much loft as I can get. So that TaylorMade worked really well for me. But because we had the loft so high, I was losing a bit of distance. So this year we found a Ping G440 5 wood was a great change for me. I'm gonna be playing this year. Really simple why I made the change. I got more ball speed and I maintained the height and trajectory of the other 5 wood I was playing. So I went from carrying it maybe in the low 230s, 235 to if I hit this well, I can get it into the 240, 245 yard range, which is important for me on longer par 5s. I just wasn't able to hit a lot of greens in 2. So I wanted to see if there was a club that could accommodate that. So this matched my profile and gave me what I wanted. So that's why I made the change. It will give me a tangible benefit on the golf course. And that's the only reason you should make a change also. If you can see there's a reason to make a change that solves an impact condition more effectively. Same accurate profile shaft on this as well, but I'm pretty excited for this and hopefully I'll hit more par 5s than 2 this year. All right, let's talk about the driver. I would say this is tied for my favorite club in my bag other than my putter. Driver used to be a massive problem for me years ago. I was hitting it all over the place, but if you've been following me and my practice methods, I figured out a way to get more face control, add distance, and a lot of it has had to do with my set makeup. So I'm still playing this Callaway Epic Max driver. I think this is 5 seasons old at this point. It's definitely not new, but my numbers are perfectly optimized for this. With my driver, I've kind of zeroed out my swing path by hitting more up on it. So I'm delivering the club fairly neutral in terms of swing path now. I hit up on it about 4 or 5 degrees, and my numbers are perfect. I'm launching it at about 13 or 14 degrees with about 2,300 RPMs of spin. If you look at that ping chart online, you'll see that that's as efficient as I can get. So I'm very proud of that. Again, I don't see any reason to change. I don't think any of the newer drivers out there would do better for me, especially on mishits. So another theme about club fitting is that when you find something that works, don't just change for the sake of changing. I don't plan on changing this driver anytime soon. Maybe in a few years something will come out where the technology upgrade is worth it, but I love this driver. How I arrived at this setup took me a while. As I said earlier, I used to struggle with face control of my driver. I would hit it quite far left and quite far right. So years ago, we actually went with a shorter driver shaft, which is something I recommend to a lot of golfers. We cut it down to about 44 inches and kind of cranked the loft up so it was a bit of a mini driver. It was set at 12.5 degrees. And when you do cut off length in the shaft, you'll have to add some weight on the head, which is something a club fitter should help you do. But that helped me for years strike the center of the face more effectively and gain that face control where I wasn't pointing too far left or right. But as I got more comfortable with the driver a few years ago, because I wasn't playing the 3 wood, I decided to go with a longer shaft. This shaft I have from Aqua was originally a 47-inch shaft. So I was playing 2 drivers and I actually kept hitting the longer one because I was actually hitting it quite well. So we ended up dropping the 44-inch shaft driver, that mini driver, going with this Epic Max head and then putting this driver at 46-inch shaft. But I think for a lot of golfers, there are a ton of benefits to going with the shorter shaft if you're struggling with face control and where you're striking it on the face. What you're gonna give up in swing speed, you usually get back in efficiency and striking it closer to the center of the face. So in my prior video on why 3 woods are the devil, I did suggest that to people who were kind of afraid of their driver, which I was for years. But as I say in most videos, if you wanna play the best golf you can, you do have to fall in love with this club and wanna use it as much as possible. And I could say that this is a very good friend of mine now, where it used to be an enemy in the past. And as I said, I probably won't change it anytime soon. Okay, I will round out the video now with my wedge makeup and why I made the decisions I did in the bottom part of the bag. With modern clubs, irons are obviously going farther. So at the top of the bag, you have to make a decision when you transition from your lowest iron to a hybrid or fairway wood. And as you get higher in loft, you need to decide when you're gonna transition from your pitching wedge to potentially a gap wedge or sand wedge and lob wedge. So I think the most important thing to think about with with your wedge makeup is first your distance control and thinking about, do I need a gap wedge? So for me, as I said, I de-loft the ball, I don't spin it a lot, so I hit my irons really far. So my pitching wedge goes at about 135 to 140 yards, and my 56 degree, I can hit about 110 yards. So I have a 50-degree gap wedge, which is about 120, 125 yard carry for me. And then I have a 56 and 60-degree wedge. So these are all Ping glide wedges. I've been playing these for years. Wedges are really the only clubs that wear out that you would need to change. I hit them a lot, so I do change them out every year. In my last video, I kind of explained that once you start seeing a lot of visible wear on the club face, you're gonna be losing a ton of spin, not necessarily off tight lies in the fairway. It's more about in the rough or a bunker where you have debris that traps between the golf club and the ball. Another thing to consider with your wedge makeup outside of distance control is the design of the club face and what type of variety you're gonna have. So because I'm a shaft leaner, I need a lot of bounce or kind of relief built into the sole of the club. So with my 56-degree sand wedge, we've gone with a much more forgiving sole design. It has more effective bounce and a very big wide sole, because when you lean the shaft, I'll try and display this, the more you lean it forward, the less you're going to engage the bounce. So I think I have about 14 degrees of bounce on this to kind of counteract that. So I'll use this when I'm in deeper lies in the rough or in bunkers, kind of areas where I need a little help with the club gliding through more. And on my lob wedge, which is a 60 degree, this is a standard design with less bounce built into it. I'll use this off of tighter lies. I use my lob wedge a lot. Pretty much any shot between 30 to 100 yard full swing, I use my lob wedge. I just feel very comfortable controlling the distance and using it on tighter lies. If you've been following me for a while, you know that my greenside wedges have been a thorn in my side the last couple of years. So I've been trying to work on that and get my chipping better, which has definitely been a struggle as of late, but I think it's getting there. So another thing that is also crucially important with your wedges, as I said earlier on my irons, is lie angle. So we needed to adjust my lie angle on these. As I said, I used to need a flatter lie angle profile, so I think we were using the Ping orange dots, which was a couple of degrees flatter. Because I switched to being more toe down, like I said, now we have the black dots. So that's part of Ping's fitting profile that they've had for, I think, decades now with their lie angle. But just something you should know about lie angle is that it does affect turf interaction as well as the directional control of your shots. And more importantly, as loft increases, lie angle has more influence on directions. If I have a lie angle problem on my 56-degree wedge, it's gonna have more problems left to right than it would on, let's say, a 4-iron or driver. So with your irons and wedges, getting lie angle right is so crucial because it improves your turf interaction and it improves your directional control as well. So essentially with wedges, I'm looking to get the right distance gaps, the right sole and grind design to accommodate the types of shots and turf I'm playing, as well as the amount of shaft lean I have. For someone else who has a different delivery of their club head, they might need entirely different grinds and loft presentations and lie angles. Getting it set up right can make the game easier for you. Last but not least, with my wedges, I've stuck with the Nippon shaft that I had that was closer to the profile of my irons. We decided not to go on the graphite with these because I'm not swinging as fast and it's not gonna put as much stress on my elbow. We didn't want to introduce too many changes to my set. So yeah, for 2025, I have a lot of different changes in my bag. As I said, my irons, my lie angle, my grips. So I'm hoping that it accommodates some changes that have occurred in my golf swing and my body. And that's really what you're looking to do with club fitting. Now, I don't want to suggest that everyone has to go out and get fit for every club in their bag. I think it's a better option than just buying off the rack, or worse, buying based on marketing claims or based on what your favorite pro golfer is using. And the whole point of this video was just to explain why I make decisions on each club in my bag. And the most important thing is that can it help solve the impact interval a little bit better for me and accommodate the DNA of my golf swing. I'm not interested in changing clubs because something new and flashy came out with marketing hype. Sometimes that's backfired for me, and I don't think you should do that either. So as always, if you have any questions or I missed anything, you can leave them in the comments section. I'll get back to them as best I can. Also wanted to give another shout out to Woody Lash and Pete's Golf. I'll give a link to their website. They taught me a ton about club fitting. They have saved me a ton of strokes on the course, helped me win tournaments and club championships because of the changes we made. And it can be really helpful to work with someone you trust and who is knowledgeable. And don't miss my last video where I show you how to win more money off your friends in match play.